Good morning. Today on this Saturday, we'll look at all of chapter 11, combine today and tomorrow's readings. Tomorrow morning, we have worship live from Mabel and Sutton at 9 o'clock as normal, and then also in person in McHenry at Our Savior's. And so that's just another Sunday, fifth Sunday of the month tomorrow, and a lot of churches on the fifth Sunday will do a special offering. I mean, there are 4 of those every year, 4 fifth Sundays. That's just the way the calendar works out. Anytime we have a fifth Sunday, I think about that, and I think about what kind of extra, something that we could do, and one of the things we can do is to find something to pray for, and there is plenty in the world to pray for. So we don't have any trouble looking or wondering about something like that. There's a person, a place, an event. We all know of something that could use our prayers. So I encourage you just to, maybe on the fifth Sunday, kind of think about something like that. In chapter 11, it begins with that verse I ended with yesterday, be imitators of me as I am of Christ. And then he says, I commend you because you remember me and you maintain the traditions as I handed them on to you. But I want to remind you that Christ is the head of every man. And then some of what he says about the relationship between man and woman and husband and wife definitely doesn't fly very well in today's society. And he says, any man who prophesies or prays with something on his head disgraces his head. And I think about, there are a lot of religions that the pastor, the priest will have, a headpiece on. And so here, that would be exactly against what Paul talks about here. You don't have anything on your head. And he's not just talking about hair. We know that as well, too. But and then any woman who prays or prophesies with her head unveiled disgraces herself. She should have a veil on her. She should have something on her head when she prays and does that, And then it's, it disgraces her. It's the same as having her head shaved. And, for her to see a woman, especially with her head shaved, is just kind of a strange deal, but sometimes, depending on circumstances, it happens. And it goes on, and I don't know which verse it is here. I probably won't find it quick, but it's disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or be shaved. She should wear a veil. For a man ought to not have his head veiled, since he's a reflection of God. But woman is a reflection of man. Woman is a reflection of God as well. It says in the Bible, he created them male and female. In his own image, he created them. So, there isn't any discrepancy that way. And there's if a woman has long hair, it's his glory. For her hair is given to her as a covenant. But it's just, I just skipped over it somewhere here in my skimming, but it says something about a man shouldn't have long hair. And I'm just not going to see that verse right now. But, I think about, here, verse 14, does not nature itself teach you that if a man wears long hair, he's degrading to him? Have you ever seen a picture of Jesus that he doesn't have long hair? And so where's Paul getting this? Or where do we get a picture of Jesus with long hair if what Paul is writing here is true? A man with long hair degrades himself. And every picture I've ever seen of Jesus, he has long hair. And so part of what Paul is saying in here really makes me kind of wonder, how much, or if any of it, we should really put into play in today's world. Today's world is different than it was, when Paul was living, of course, but and the world was changing. I mean, religion was changing with people believing in Jesus. They're still Jews, but now they're believing in Jesus, so that, there's a discrepancy in that, and there's friction between households and everything, as well, as we know. And he says, if anyone is disposed to be contentious, we have no customs, nor do the churches of God. And we're to try to get along with each other that way. And then starting in verse 17, I think would be tomorrow's reading. But he says, in the following instructions, I do not commend you. Yeah, here they're doing something wrong again. And this pertains to the practice of Holy Communion. And evidently some of them were coming and they weren't just using the bread and the wine, or if they had a bread, they were, making pigs of themselves, more or less. He says, when you come, it's not really to eat the Lord's Supper, but you should go ahead and eat, and satisfy your hunger at home. Because this Holy Communion, the body and blood of Christ that we get, isn't enough to, satisfy our body's needs for food and drink. And it's not meant that way. It's meant that it's the spiritual food that we need. And that's always what I think about with Holy Communion. It's the spiritual food we need. Whether we use unleavened bread, whether we use the unleavened cracker, whether we use a wheat cracker, whether we use an unleavened wafer, it doesn't matter what we use. And it doesn't matter if we use Mogan David wine or some really nice expensive wine or grape juice or apple juice or clear grape juice. It doesn't matter what the elements are. What matters is the words of Christ, the words of institution, this is my body, and Paul quotes those as he says, as it has been handed to me, for I received from the Lord what I hand to you. And he then uses the words of institution to remind us that this holy meal is for us and for our spiritual satisfaction. And it isn't, it's not that, to be this full meal. I mean, the Seder meal that the Jews practiced and still do was a full meal because that was a traveling meal. But yet when they observe a Seder meal today, it's smaller portions, and everything. But, it's just a reminder to hold Holy Communion as holy and special, and to remind them that this, you just need this little bit, and it's to share equally. Not one person be a glutton and eat it all. I mean, we've been having some unleavened bread made, and I got to make some more for down at Mabel, but because I'm out. But if you take that loaf of bread and if one person eats all of that, what good does it do for the community of the church? And Paul is saying, it's just, share. And don't come thinking that you're going to get filled up on this meal. I mean, we've got, say, a homeless person that hasn't had a meal in a couple of days comes to worship, and it happens, and we have Holy Communion. They are welcome to come to Holy Communion, to have this body and blood of Christ. It's their spiritual food, but it isn't going to satisfy that physical hunger that's within them, but it satisfies the spiritual. And then Paul reminds them from verses 23 to 26, of Jesus' words that we use at the Last Supper. This is my body that's given for you. Do this in remembrance of me, and this cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it and remember me. And then verse 26, for as often as you eat the bread and drink the cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. And so Holy Communion isn't just the spiritual food, but it's proclaiming Jesus' death and resurrection. And it's preparing us for that second coming. And in verse 27, he says, whoever eats the bread and drinks the wine in an unworthy manner will be answerable to God. And so it's It's to respect it and to hold it as holy and special and precious. God's gift of Jesus given to you and to me. And tomorrow on the fifth Sunday, of course, we don't have Holy Communion. But at Mabel and our Savior's, we celebrate communion on the first and third Sundays. And I say celebrate, observe, participate, because it is a participatory meal. We come, we receive the bread, we receive the wine, we eat it, we drink it, and a part of Jesus feeds our spiritual needs.